Hello, this is Tom Stiles, and this is Tom's Radio Room Show. And I can't believe it. It's almost fall. Yeah, it's like in, 2 weeks it'll be fall? Can't believe it. And what does that mean when we reach fall? It means that the trees start losing their leaves. Well, that's not all it means. It means shortwave listening should improve. Yes, been looking forward to that for a long time, 6 months now. But shortwave listening should improve. And one of the reasons it improves is you have shorter days and longer nights. And typically, shortwave listening, especially long distance listening, will be better when the sun goes down. And that's on frequencies like 5 megahertz up to 30 megahertz. It's just typical, not guaranteed. So now is the time to get your old radio dusted off and get ready for some shortwave listening, because the bands will start booming. No, that's not a picture of me. I'm old, but I'm not that old. That just represents a picture of someone listening to shortwave radio. And one of the things you can do to make it more interesting, and I did that for years. I haven't done it recently, but I plan on getting back into that, is doing shortwave listening reports, where you send a report to a station stating that you listen to their broadcast and some other information, and they will typically send you some kind of verification back. Now let's go into what this is all about. And here's an example of what you might receive back. This is something that somebody received, wasn't me, from China Radio. I received a postcard and a letter and a little decal thing there. They send you some pretty cool things. Now this has gone down so much because stations are cutting back, but there's many stations that still do this, and they're glad to get the reports. So how do you do a report, and what is the report? Well, the report is telling the station that you've heard their broadcast, and you're receiving verification of that report via a QSL card from the radio station, or like you saw in the previous slide, some other little trinkets. And what is a QSL? Well, back in the radio telegraph days, it was a code meaning I confirm your transmission. So that's where the term came from. In shortwave listening, it's a card or letter, or now an email from the station confirming that they received your report and that you indeed heard their broadcast. And like I say, nowadays, and that's why I'm interested in getting back into it, is because being an old guy, time is of the essence, is you can get a quick response via emails. So let's talk about what you need to put in your report so that it will be accepted. Okay, to receive a QSL from a station, you need to send a reception report giving the following information. And in years past, you actually had to write a letter and mail it to them. Now you can send them an email and get much faster response from the station. And of course they'll get their email instantaneously, and then whoever does that will get around to reading the email. So here's some things you need to include. You need to include the date and time in UTC time, not your local time. You need to use that universal time that everybody knows what it is. And then when you heard the station, the frequency on which you heard the station, because a lot of these stations, like China Radio, broadcast on many frequencies, and they have stations throughout the world. So they have multiple transmitters. So they want to know what frequency. That will give an indication of what station transmitter that you heard. Then you give some details about what you heard. Things like names of the announcers, the program, title of music selections if it was had music, station logos, and all kinds of those things. Information that they can verify that you actually listen to their station. Then you also need to evaluate the signal quality, including the strength, degree of fading in and out, and any interference. That's one of the things that's happening nowadays is many of these stations are getting on purpose being jammed by other countries. So you need to include if there's any jamming you heard and possibly what stations they were, and maybe it's just not intentional jamming, but maybe it's just another station right on top of their station. So you need to include that. Some other things you need to include is tell them about your radio and your setup. Give them the make and model of the radio you're using, along with the external antennas you might be using, such as the G5RV that I use. So you need to include that. And then some comments and suggestion about the station's programming itself will be helpful. Be candid and, let them know you listened to this particular broadcast and what you liked about it or what you didn't like about it. Now, one thing to keep in mind is you don't want to have the report that you send them too long, because if it's too long, they'll go, that's too long, I'll skip to the next one. So you need to make concise statements. So just don't babble on like I typically do. Another thing you can do is you can send them a SINPO code, which is a code that gives an indication of that reception. And SINPO stands for signal strength, interference, atmospheric noise, propagation, and overall reception quality. And you score it on a 1 to 5 scale where 5 is best. So, for example, a perfect score would be 555. So that's the things you can do and include in your report, because you want, you go into all this effort, you want to get some kind of verification back. Okay, here are some places where you can find out information about those stations. For instance, if you want to send them a letter, you can find addresses. Where do you send it? If you want to contact them via email, because a lot of the stations now have an email address, you can go to the WRTH book. If you have one of those handbooks, all the information in there. You can just do a Google search of the station, and they will maybe have a web page with the information of how you send in a report. Or I found the other day this website here has a great article, and it's up to date. It was a September article about this hobby of getting QSL cards, and basically saying the same thing I said, plus there's a whole bunch of information, recent information, of stations that still give you these QSL cards or an email. So you can go there and read that, and there's some links, there's many links on that website giving you information of how to get your report to those stations via email or even via a letter. So yeah, dust off your old radio, make sure your antennas are working. In a couple of weeks it'll be fall, and I guarantee you, well, that's a bad word to use, but I'm pretty sure that shortwave reception is going to improve in the coming months and through fall and winter. So if you enjoyed this show, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, I thank everybody that has subscribed. We're getting close to that 5,000 subscribers. That would be wonderful. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.